Hi, everyone. May peace be on you all, and welcome to another episode of I'm a Muslim and That's Okay, and this new season segment of The Whole Muslim. And with me, I have, as always, a very special guest, but she is extra special because we have history together. Please meet Tania Ahmed, and she is a part of my history from, I like to say high school, but we didn't do high school in the traditional sense as they understand it in the US because we didn't have like the 12th grade. What we had in Pakistan is because at least I studied under the British system, we had O levels, which was like until the 11th grade, and then we did 2 years of A levels, and that is when I met Tania Ahmed, but she was a year junior to me. So, I mean, we met in those, as we were discussing, in those golden years when we had nothing to worry about. But please, before I go on and on, Tania, introduce yourself.
Hey, Shao, so good to be here. Thank you for having me. Like Shao mentioned, we went to school together. She was a senior. But somehow the other we happened to have free time in between classes off together. And if I'm not mistaken, you were on the school council, weren't you?
Oh yes, the biggest dweeb in all of like any like school history. Whether it was O levels, I was always on the school council, and for some reason, I ended up in the school council in A levels as well. Yes, that is correct, Tania.
So that's why I sort of knew Shao, and I started talking to her, and we just found out that we had some similar quirky traits, and I remember having some really good laughs. And
we both had the creative streak, Tania, and I think that's what we had in common. But after those 2 years of A levels, our paths sort of separated. I know I went on to do I went against traditional norms, Tania. I was supposed to be the bio student. I could not get into med school because that was not going to happen. And up until I think the very last month in which you're supposed to apply to various departments in college, I was supposed to go into microbiology. Yes, that's what I was supposed to get into. But then somebody told me that they also offer graphic design in the visual arts department. And I made a complete 360, and I went into visual arts and did my bachelor's in graphic design.
Really?
Yeah, that's what I did. But you tell me, Tania, I know what you're doing right now, but how did you end up getting to where you are right now?
Well, trying to make a long story short, in O levels, I studied biochemistry physics, and that was expected of me. Well, there were two choices. I could study commerce or I could study biochemistry physics, the sciences.
That's all we had.
That's the only choice we had. And I struggled miserably. So I struggled at school. I struggled at A levels as well. I had computer science, business studies, and sociology. And I had to retake some of my exams as well because I did so badly. I managed to get a distinction in English, which didn't count.
That's always our theme. English was always our thing. I did so miserably in my A levels, but English was the thing that I always got good marks in.
I know. So so I basically grew up thinking that I didn't have more than 2 brain cells to rub together. So it wasn't until college and university that, I started studying things that I actually liked and was good at, that I thought, oh my God, I do have a brain. So in college, one of my subjects was English, and I ended up going to Karachi University, did my master's in English, and somehow passed first class honors.
Wow.
And I thought that I would get a chance to teach at Karachi University. And well, as you know, life rarely goes as planned. And
that's right.
In final semester, I got nikah, got married.
Yeah.
And I don't know how I gave my exams because my brain was all about, oh my God, I have to move to the UK. So if you guys can't tell by my funny accent, I was born and raised in Pakistan, like Shao, and I live in the UK now. So I have this Pakistani American British accent.
It's
And
beautiful, Tania.
oh, thanks, love. And yeah, so I submitted my thesis in January. In March, I had my reception, and in the first week of April, I was in the UK.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, it happened that fast. It
Yeah.
happened that fast. We got married in November, applied for my visa in January, and within a couple of days, I was told that I need to be in the UK in the first week of April.
Oh my gosh.
And it's like that. It doesn't happen that quickly for anyone. I don't know why it happened for me,
It was
but
fated.
as
It was
you know,
meant to be, Tania.
it was meant to be. And Alhamdulillah, that was like 13 years ago. And I moved here, and I thought, like, what am I supposed to do now?
Right.
And my husband was studying at that time and working, so he was pretty busy.
Right.
And I was always very creative, and even though I have relatives there, we didn't have anyone nearby. I lived in a very predominantly white town, and so there wasn't much of a community around. And even though I spoke the language, it was very anxiety inducing to take public transport,
Right.
because it just felt like, you know, being thrown into a whole new situation all of a sudden.
Right.
And I was fairly confident,
Right.
thanks to university and college. So it was like having to rebuild myself. So
Right.
because I just sort of knew who I was and what I needed to do in Pakistan, and here I was in a whole new country, and you know, you have to try and
The social
find
rules
your
are different.
place. Yeah.
That's what I noticed when I had moved too, is that it doesn't matter if you know the language or even have like a decent understanding of the culture. It's just that it's the small social rules that are so different, and you're just trying to navigate all of those things when you're just brand new in the country.
Yeah, and it wasn't even my first visit to the UK.
Mm-hmm.
I'd actually stayed in the country for 5 months, but as you know, we are I don't know about you, but I definitely had a very sheltered upbringing.
Right. Me too.
So I wasn't confident about doing things by myself.
Right.
And here was my husband. He's like, you can do whatever you want in life, and I don't mind. And I'm
wow.
Like,
That's
do
sweet.
men like that exist?
Yeah, that's fantastic.
I know, alhamdulillah, he's my better half, and we are polar opposites, but we complement each other.
That's fantastic.
And so he was like, go forth and be happy. I'm like, huh? Okay, how do I do that?
How do I do that? This is very unfamiliar to us.
I know. And so he, again, we're talking about, I see a lot of fate and destiny in my life, Shel. And what happened was that one of my best friends from school, from O levels, who lives in Canada, was visiting the UK, and she said to her cousin, oh, I want to visit my friend Tania, and she lives in this small town. How do I get there from your house? And she's like, you silly girl, I live in the same town. So the odds of my friend's cousin, my friend's cousin living in the same town, it's not even a big town, it's a small town. And I was introduced to my friend's cousin, who is still a very, very good friend to this day. And she said to me, she worked in a charity, and which was an umbrella organization. So they had many different organizations under the main name. And she said, why don't you come and train as an interpreter? So I was like, okay. Well, I've got language skills, and so I trained to become an interpreter, and eventually I worked in their offices as well. And I was doing various things under that charity, and it was an amazing introduction to the work system over here in the UK, working for a charity. They were an amazing, very diverse organization. everyone from British to European to people from our part of the world as well.
Right.
So it was very, very diverse, and it was an amazing environment to work in. So I work with as a teaching assistant for English for speakers of other languages.
Right.
And I even worked to train to become a careers advisor as well. And I became a fully qualified interpreter. I even helped out in their offices, helped out with their finances. So my day-to-day became really busy, and I felt like, I found my place here. So I thought that this was it. And I had this very, very chance meeting that I was in another town, and I was visiting a hobby store in that town. So over there you have Michael's and Joann's. So over here we have Hobbycraft. So in another town, I was visiting Hobbycraft, and I was looking at a particular product, and somebody, this strange man approached me, and he said, "Don't buy that." And he said, "Wait a minute, I'll run out to the car and I'll give you my business card and you look up this product." So he gave me his business card, and I just looked at it. It looked legitimate, and I thought, this guy he seems sincere. He does not fishy. So I just looked up their website. And at this point, I was sort of aware of the crafting industry. Through the wonderful world of YouTube. So because we didn't really have a craft store nearby.
And even in Pakistan, I mean, crafts exist, but they're so randomly placed. I mean, if you needed to find something, there for some reason you'd be able to find it at some really hole in the wall store, but it's not like a big thing as it's in the US or in the UK. They aren't like proper store just dedicated to craft.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if you wanted to do like beadwork, you would go to a sewing shop. You go to a place like Tariq Road. And there's like a couple of if you're familiar with Karachi, then you know which shops I'm talking about. And or if you wanted something else, then you'd have to go to a certain area. So you wouldn't have like one dedicated store. And even when I was in Pakistan, I would look up these amazing crafting communities abroad, like in America and UK. So there was a website called Craftster.org that I was a member of, and I would drool over everything everyone shared and look at all these weird and wonderful things. And I'm like, there's no way I could get my hands on these products over here in Pakistan. And and so I that guy who gave me his card, I looked it up on the internet, and I saw that they were a genuine company, and they were looking for people to join the design team. So a design team is basically a crafting manufacturer will send their product to some people, and in exchange for the product, you would make projects using their products. So it would involve maybe producing videos or step-by-step instructions, things like that. And because this was my first design team chance, I really put a lot of thought into it. And as us Pakistanis, we're like, go over the top. And so I worked really hard on my project, and they liked what I did so much. They said, "Our office person is leaving. Would you like to join us in the office?" And I was like, yeah. And one thing led to another, and I was there for 6 years. So I was working in the creative industry. My job wasn't creative per se, but I was doing something that I never thought it was possible for me to do. So I was traveling abroad, going to trade shows. I was doing things like managing people, sourcing product from the Far East, looking after the website, making sure things were stocked, and just helping to organize like 10, 11 shows in a year, like all over the world. And it was an amazing experience, and I learned so much. But my job wasn't very creative.
Right.
So I was doing a lot more office-based stuff, and I was
Right.
more in front of a computer screen rather than doing things with my hands.
Right.
So I made a very, very difficult decision to leave that job, and because by that time I had made friends within the creative industry who worked as designers, who worked as freelance tutors, and every time I spoke to them, something inside me would like die a little bit.
I know.
You know, it's like not with jealousy, but it's like I want that for myself.
That's right.
And so I just thought let's just take a punt and see what happens. And so I left that job and I took a couple of months off. And in 2018, I really started going for it. So I've always wanted to make videos. So in 2018, I said, okay, I'm just gonna start doing it and stop overthinking this, because I am a terrible overthinker. And I just thought, you know what, what's the worst that can happen?
Right.
I can just delete the stuff if it tanks. And I just got slowly noticed by companies, and some of my friends were very, very encouraging. And they said, no, you should apply for more things, or they suggested me to other companies. So it just kept building up from there. And right now, trying to explain what I do, I don't have like a very tidy job title.
That's what I'm curious to know, and I would love my audience to know, because what you do is so unusual, and the fact that you do it is so unusual. So what's the best description of what you do?
I like to say that I am a creative content maker, and I am an art and craft tutor and teacher.
And
so
what do you do?
Kind of
you gotta define what do you do, Tania, just like a short bio, because again, they don't know you. I know what you do, but they don't know what you do.
So I work with several art and craft manufacturers within the industry, and I'm on their team, and they will often compensate me monetarily to produce videos and creative content for them. So it might be blog posts, it might be videos made especially for YouTube or Instagram or for their website. So that, and then I do other things like live streams as well. I do online classes as well. I collaborate with other designers as well. And I also have my own podcast about crafting, and the tagline is basically, it's my excuse to talk about the things that I love with the people that I admire. So yeah, that's basically what I do.
And that's the thing, that is such an unusual thing. And I know, because I'm into crafts, that you're not the only one who does it. And every craft has its own content creator. Like I'm a crocheter. My craft is crocheting, and I follow people who are into crocheting and yarn. And what I've seen so many in the yarn, I guess, craft industry, who do what you do, that they create videos, blog posts, and all of these things for companies, and they are then compensated for this. So but most people aren't aware that each craft has its own niche that exists this way. So what craft niche or what craft niche are you in? Because mine is yarn. So what's yours?
So my microverse is paper crafting and mixed media, I would say. Paper crafting and mixed medias, and specifically card making, art journals, and monoprinting.
And
so those are my specific genres.
And the stuff she does is so cute. I'm just sitting there in those videos, and I don't even do this stuff, and I'm sitting there like, I want this, I want what she's making, I wonder if she sells that, I'm gonna buy this, because I can't make any of that. I don't have that kind of skill, but it looks so pretty. I mean, she makes the pretty stuff. That's what I'm saying. Bottom line, Tania makes the pretty stuff. So, I mean, it's
Exactly.
the pretty cards and the pretty paper. And I'm like, yeah, that's what you should do next. Like make all of these things into like, I don't know, like one of those journals and sell those journals. I would totally buy it with a pretty paper inside.
I sell more the process rather
Right.
than the actual end product, if
And
that kind of makes
product.
sense.
Yes.
So
Right.
my tagline is basically demystifying like the process and making
Right.
it easy and empowering people to be creative.
Right. Now I'm going to ask you two things from two separate point of views. Um, in the mixed media industry, you are the unicorn. And why are you the unicorn? Is that because are there other Muslim people in that niche, very niche industry?
There are, but there are very few of us.
Right. So, I mean, does it make it hard for you to be the one of the very few Muslims there?
No, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
I've I think when I was working for that other company, they were all non-Muslim,
Right.
and I sort of became at one point almost unaware that I was a person of, I was a Muslim.
Right.
So that's how I presented myself to
Right.
the rest of the world as well. And at that time, I didn't cover my head.
Right.
So at that point, I didn't wear the hijab.
Right.
I didn't cover my head, and I did get a few odd looks.
Right.
Being a person of color in
Right.
a predominantly white space.
Right.
And there weren't that many people of color in the industry.
Right.
And especially at the shows that I was going to. So I did get a few odd looks, but I didn't really feel self-conscious about it because I felt confident in myself enough to just be myself.
Right.
And I would get the occasional ignorant or odd questions, but I would try and brush them off with just trying to be as dignified and as possible without being rude.
Right.
So after I left that job, I got the confidence to do what felt right for me, and I started covering my head more so in 2017.
Mm-hmm.
And I just somehow it's just given me more confidence to be myself. Now I don't know what it is.
Right.
I don't know if it's because it could be a couple of things. It could be because I decided to be myself.
Right.
It could be because I'm getting older, and the older you get, the less you care about what other people think.
Exactly.
Or it was because I was doing what I loved, and I was enjoying every second of it. Right. So it's a couple of things, and I believe in the power of networking, and that's one of the main things that big things that I get from my dad. My dad is a really, really very good with people, and I like to think that I'm good at networking as well, and I try and stay in touch with the people. So I think that served me really well over the years, and people who I've stayed in touch with have often become really, really good friends over the years, who have been a huge support and who have cheered me on from the sidelines and even recommended me for jobs.
Oh, that's fantastic.
So there's always one part of me that's always aware that I am different.
Right.
But at the same time, I've not let that stop me, or I've not really shut down any conversations that people have tried to have with me about my very obvious physical appearance.
Right. Now I'm going to ask you that was the easy part, Tania. I'm going to ask you the hard question. How do the Pakistanis take what you're doing? Because let's be honest, okay? We came from a generation where you were either a doctor or an engineer or nothing in between. There was nothing in between. Like half the time I try to explain what I do to people and they're like, but we don't get it. So there's plenty of Pakistanis in the UK and in our families. What are you telling them? What is it that you do?
Well, it's kind of easy. So I basically give them the short version.
Right.
And because you are sort of familiar with the arts and crafts industry, you ask me to expand on that. And just me giving them that short version, sort of, it just, you know, they just become dazed. You can see their eyes glazing over.
You can tell them you're an influencer, Tania. It'll be enough.
Oh my God, no. Please don't call me that. But I tell them that I make pretty things and I make videos using pretty things. So
right.
that kind of makes sense. And sometimes I might show them my Instagram, if they're interested. But I'm really lucky that my parents are very, very hugely supportive.
Oh, that's sweet.
And I think at one point my poor mom, she gave up on me because I was so desperately average at school that at some point she just said, just let her do whatever she wants. I'm just glad she's going to studying anyway. Right. And my mom is my number one fan, and every time I do a live event, she turns up to my Zooms.
Oh, that's sweet.
She watches all my videos. She comments every time on my Facebook page.
Right.
So that's just really, really sweet, and she's very proud of me. She's very, very proud of me, and
I think that's the thing. I mean, especially the generation where we grew up in, it was very hard for parents to really visualize their kids doing something other than those two things, you know? And the fact that even despite that, you know, she shows up and she's there cheering you on. I think that's so great.
Yeah. I think what my mom really loves is that my mom is a master's economics, and she worked for a bit, but then she stopped because, as you know, family takes priority in our culture. And I think a part of her really loves seeing me do my own thing.
Right.
So, which is why I think that she's like really cheering me on and, you know, happy that I'm doing my own thing.
Right. So tell me, I mean, in this industry, I mean, you're in there, okay? You have your entire brand and you've got your tutorial videos, and people can literally like search you up on Instagram. I'll put all your like Instagram handles and website in my show notes and everything, even your podcast. I mean, I think it's so great that you have a dedicated mixed media podcast. But in this industry, where do you see it going? I mean, what do you think is the future of this industry? And do you think it's challenging to be in this industry, especially how everything is becoming tech? So do you think it affects this industry?
Well, the thing is that the industry has changed a lot. It was going to change anyway and be more digital and be more online. But because of the pandemic, the process has been accelerated. So because shops closed down, people weren't able to visit craft shops or attend in-person events or do in-person classes. So everything moved online. And there's been like a lot of tragedies in the family. So personally, it's not been great, but professionally, it's been really, really good for me. It's led to a lot more opportunities. So more companies are more interested in doing things online. So there's a lot more interest in video content making, doing live streams as well. Shao, it's just crazy for me to say this. It's like sometimes I have to pinch myself. I really have to pinch myself that I'm doing live streams for Michaels, me, a Pakistani girl, sitting in the
Yeah.
UK, and I'm doing live streams for Michael's, for the company that I work.
I think that is
So
so great.
it just blows my mind. It
I
blows
think
my
that's so
mind
great.
because 15 years ago, if somebody had said that to me, I would have laughed. I would have
Yeah.
laughed. Because it's like, even though I come from a really educated family and
Mhm.
they take a lot of pride in educating our women, I never thought that I would have any ambition or a future or a career of
Right.
sorts.
Right.
And to be able to say what I'm doing right now, it's still very humbling. It's very humbling because I know where I came from.
Right.
I know where I came from. And I did have some advantages, yes, but I've worked hard.
Mm-hmm.
And there's just no substitute for it.
Right. I mean, and that's the thing. That's why I wanted you to come on, because I mean, that's the thing. I'm also vicariously living through you because I love what you do. It was one of those things that I recognized that it's not something that we could have, I think, like literally the hand of God was right there, because otherwise I could not have fallen into that, and you could not have fallen into that industry the way that you did, because of how we see our trajectories in life. It's so cut and dry for a lot of Pakistani Muslim women. And you're like, okay, after a certain age, you're sort of destined to this really average life. And you're like, okay, fine, we're going to have to live with that now.
Yeah. And that's what I expected for myself.
Right.
That was my expectation. I expected that I would have like half a dozen children. And I'd spend like half a day ironing somebody's shirts, dress shirts all day. And here I am, very happily married for 13 years, and my husband does his own ironing.
Oh, that's sweet. No, but thank you so much, Tania, for being with me. But before we close, do tell my audience about your social media, website, and even your podcast. I mean, give us your handles, your web addresses, everything, so they can, find out about you and see all the great work you do, because I love doing it. I just sit there and watch you, and I was like, oh, it's so pretty.
Aww, thank you. So you can find me on Instagram at Tania Ahmed. That's TaniaAhmed, and my website is taniaahmedcreative.com. And the podcast is called The Craftermath. And you can find that on www.thecraftermath.com. And you can listen to all the episodes on any app or Spotify, everywhere. And and I'm on YouTube as well. So if you search for Tania Ahmed, then I will turn up in the searches.
Yes.
Thank you, Shel.
No, thank you so much for being with me. And thank you to everybody who's been listening and watching us on YouTube. And until next time, you guys take care of yourself, and may peace be on you all.